It is not unusual to see a line of asylum seekers stand underneath the Nelson Mandela Boulevard Bridge on the foreshore in Cape Town. In fact, it is a normal occurrence for the queue to stretch around the Custom House building. To desperate refugees pushed out of their homelands because of war, human rights abuses, violence, and socio-economic conditions, this queue is often the line between a better life or one of further struggle.
South Africa has 4 refugee reception offices. We have one in Musina, there's one in Durban, there's one in Port Elizabeth, and then one in Pretoria. We have a refugee reception office in Cape Town, but it's not open to new asylum seekers. The first impression that you get when you go is the long queues, especially the women standing in those queues from early hours in the morning, as early as 4, with babies on their arms. In our experience, the asylum process is one of long queues. People have been waiting for years, even decades, before their asylum claims were properly dealt with.
The permit that I'm using in South Africa is a refugee status, and based on my experience, it's not a good experience. Where sometimes you wake up 3 a.m. in the morning, you have to go to the Department of Home Affairs, you wait on long queues till about 7:30 in the morning. Some of our permits are being collected and we still wait outside for some time. There is nowhere to sit. You are standing, and sometimes it's rainy. You've got women with very young babies, some of them as old as 3 days. They're running from one queue to the other, caps falling off the babies' heads. It's an experience that I would not like maybe the next generation of refugees living in South Africa to experience, because it's not a good one.
An estimated 80,000 refugees come to South Africa for an opportunity at a better life, but only 3 to 4% of the South African population is made up of non-nationals, which reflects a global norm. The perception of this issue has been skewed to show a flooding of hidden refugees or migrants, but data shows a very different reality. We follow the stories of 3 women who took a long and dangerous path, risking their lives, dignity, and health only to reach the borders of a land where their struggles continue. This is Rose. She left the Democratic Republic of Congo on foot to escape the repercussions of war. When soldiers attacked her village, she was gang raped and held hostage as a sex slave in a secluded forest.
I was having my business, so it was a saloon, and I was put small thing inside. And after that, they all come to my country. First thing, they loot my stuff. After that, I was being raped with those soldiers. And after those soldiers, one of them, he said, we can take this girl so she can be our wife. They took me to the bush with them, and I used to stay with them there, and I was being raped every day. They would just do anything to me.
After gaining the trust of her captors, Rose made a daring escape, blindly running through a dense forest. There, she met a man who would help her reach a land of opportunity. It took them several years to finally reach South Africa. Rose arrived in 2009 on Valentine's Day.
In me, I didn't have choice. I didn't have choice because they tell me I'll help you. I just put everything now. Check on from Maboko and Zambia. Yeah, because what I was going through was a lot. So I was like, I didn't have choice. I'll help you. I just say, okay. I just trust myself. Okay, we can go. If I'll make it, thank you. If I can't, it's, yeah. Yeah.
Having conversations with people in the queues, you come to find that many get permit extensions for 1 month only and have to come back each time to renew their paperwork. So essentially, you are part of a paper queue as well. The connection we tend to have when we think of refugees is what had happened to them in their place of birth. Gender-based violence is not only something that happens in neighboring countries. It comes in the form of comments, institutional xenophobia. Without the correct documentation, it's very difficult to even access healthcare and education. But despite this, our refugees and migrant communities are still resilient. Despite the barriers they face, they are committed to helping and building a better country.
As a transgender woman, Jackie made the hard decision to leave her family because of the discrimination she faced. In 2002, she was shot outside of a nightclub by one of the patrons. Rushed to the hospital for surgery, she says doctors were homophobic and she had difficulty getting the treatment she needed to stay alive. When she reached South Africa in 2007, she faced the same kind of hate.
I faced too much problems in South Africa because I was thinking safe for us is not safe, especially a trans woman in Africa. Even the government, you don't understand transgender women because I face too much problems here in South Africa. I get raped, I get people beating me, even the taxis, transport, I don't speak the language, I don't speak Afrikaans, I don't speak Zulu, I don't speak Xhosa. Sometimes I get discrimination for people. Why run your country? You are this, you are this. That's the problem I get in South Africa.
It's these issues we have been advocating for it, I don't know for how many years for now. Because if you look at these issues of access to healthcare services, access to basic education, and access to employment, you need to first look at the constitutionality of these issues. The principal law, which is the Constitution of South Africa, it has clearly indicated that everyone has got a right to access basic education. It has clearly indicated that everyone, including, because there's a tendency, or I don't know whether it's a behavior from the public servants, that they tend to interpret everyone from the Constitution point of view, and it means only the citizens. And when you look at the definition on the very same Constitution, when it talks about everyone, it means every individual or every person who is living within the Republic of South Africa. And if you have asylum seekers, refugees, and migrants living within the Republic of South Africa, it makes them party of the everyone. And the Constitution goes further to say everyone has got access to access basic healthcare services, including emergency and sexual and reproductive healthcare services. But in reality, is that the fact? No. In reality, we still find cases of women, children being denied those basic services. And when you go deeper and you ask why they are being denied, There is no proper answer.
Internal migration is also something that happens in South Africa. The government needs to plan effectively to take this into consideration. And what is important to note, migrants, asylum seekers and refugees in South Africa, there are no definite statistics. But if we look into the census through Stats South Africa in 2011, the data from that shows us that foreign-born people in South Africa make up roughly between 4 to 7% of the population. So that does not put South Africa within the top 10 countries of migrant and refugee receiving countries. This is often portrayed in the media incorrectly.
For Jeanine, it was a culmination of factors that pushed her out of Burundi. The romance between her mother from the Tutsi tribe and her father from the Hutu clan created problems for the family. Jeanine's mother developed a mental disorder which only worsened over time. But what made Jeanine pack the little she had to flee her place of birth was rebels destroying her village and the threat of rape. She made the choice to travel with her small children, but her path was riddled with gender-based violence. She endured more hardship for the sake of her children.
Wakati natoka kunyumba, wakati kawaida kunyumba nilikuwa natumika, nilikuwa nafanya biashara, nilikuwa na mtaji. Sasa wakati na fujo natokea, nilikuwa najikutana niko na franga kidogo, njoo nimetusaidia kusema tulipe wale wa matrake, batusaidie munjia tukue, lakini munjia ilikuwa na matatizo, ilikuwa inabidi wale wanaume inabidi mpendane nao munjia kusema upate gisi ya kufika hapa South Africa. Nimejikutana na kuaga na udhaifu wa mwili na mara mingi najikutananga mwili saa vile naugua, maana na saa moja najikutana sina watoto, saa moja najikutana tu sina furaha tu ya maisha. Najikutana mara mingi kila kitu nafanya kwangu ni kibaya na nakuwa na matatizo ya mwili. Miguru najikutanaga hivi mgongo kuna mani matatizo na hivi miguru mara mingi, na mara mingi naubwaga sana, najikutanaga niko na infection. Kivyangu ilikuwa vigumu juu sikuwa najua, sikuwa naamini venye tuko nao na sikuwa najua nani nitakimbilia wapi na nani atanisaidia.
Rose, Jackie and Jeanine's stories are only 3 in a multitude of voices speaking of the vulnerabilities women, children and members of the LGBTQI community face while migrating.
Yes, women and children, they are facing gender-based violence on their way and while in South Africa. On their way, sometimes they are abused. Some of them, they are abused by the truck drivers, and they are using them as sex slaves to give them a lift to bring them to South Africa. So they have been used as sex slaves. And when they are crossing the border, in some areas, they will meet with rebels who rape them in the bushes. So, and while in South Africa, they face, because of language barrier, they will face discrimination. And again, the xenophobia, which is happening in South Africa. So many women, and especially refugees, are facing those kind of challenges while in South Africa.
Arriving in South Africa was only the start of Rose's grief. After hearing she would need to be documented to access services, Rose slept at a Home Affairs office for 2 nights at a time when people were being killed in xenophobic attacks near the Nyanga area. What complicated the process was that Rose could not express herself in English. Again, she had to rely on the kindness of a Congolese man who interpreted her trauma. Her trauma was again revisited when she explained to a Home Affairs officer that she was repeatedly raped. This officer happened to be a male.
Bon, premièrement, pour qu'on voit papier, façon ba maltraiter biso le quoi ba nyama.
Xenophobia is something that Rose continued to experience even when seeking medical assistance in her sexual and reproductive health.
Nakutana pia na sister kama nini na clinique. Nataka kuzwa nini tonga ya 2 mois. Tangu na yeye abando gangi la ngaba niko finga ngai pe boya bina ko nini tena bi ngamo konde na stopper kinazwa tonga te. Donc na ipsa kama swani sanga mape azo finga ngapi nza. Pona ipsa kina expliquer na bi ngamo konde na zoka na nzoto nga bien te me bandiko swani sanga ifo kaka donc abandiko swani ko finga ngama kasi. Olinda ko bota biro makwiri pa fore nyempona bande aswani afisanga mape. Pona bana na clinique okumana mtu oye mwana azobela. Uzoki na hospital mwana yomo mwana ki mwana za nini. Ezaye na sister mo na clinique wa bébé. So ya za mwana ya biso ba fore ya simba kaibo. Obi azobso. Longola mwana bilamba ko kiata ko simba ite.
Jackie's experiences has caused her psychological trauma. The emotional weight she carries pulls her towards suicidal thoughts. She accessed counseling through NGOs, but this was not enough.
Sometimes, if I remember that problem I'm facing from home, from South Africa, sometimes I feel I want to kill myself. Sometimes I cry, I say, why am this? I say, I don't know I can go because I was thinking I can be better in South Africa. I still face the problems. Sometimes I say, why me I get the problems?
The constant demand for documentation from health service providers has been the reason that Jeanine has not yet had herself tested for viral or bacterial infections. However, it is her children that she is most concerned about because they have been turned away by public hospitals and clinics.
One of the other types of violence that we see is often barriers to healthcare and the implicit violence that is created in a person's life. Many foreign national women who are pregnant are subjected to criticism, insults, stereotyping of them coming here to steal our healthcare services and to give birth in South Africa so that their child will become a citizen.
It is important to note firstly that South Africa is not a country that allows citizenship by birth. So simply giving birth here does not make your child a citizen.
When you look at the institutionalized xenophobia and discrimination, where people are denied access to the certain services based on their nationality, then it clearly directly interprets on the issues of discrimination that South Africa, especially on the public service and public servants, they are not welcome to access those basic services, which then create a very serious gap because you have a community now of children who don't have education. You have a community of women who are not accessing sexual and reproductive healthcare services.
We must come together as women for social cohesion. So why today we are having this activity? As I explained, I'm from an organization called Sonke Gender Justice. We are not working alone. We are working with other organizations. But let's Sonke Gender Justice.
Despite what the refugee women are going through in South Africa, they still have the strength to move forward in the sense that they still go around every day, find out where they can get help for themselves, how they can access certain services in the community. They still have the strength to meet together as refugee women sometimes, empower each other with information that some of them have gotten from non-profit organizations like Sonke Gender Justice.
Sonke Gender Justice has done some really great advocacy work, creative activism around reopening the Cape Town Refugee Reception Office to newcomer asylum seekers. We did a campaign called the Department of Happiness Affairs, which highlighted that this process could be a happy one and that people standing in the queues could be welcomed in a different way.
When our children go to the Department of Home Affairs, they do not even have a comfortable space for kids where they can maybe draw or color in or play. There are no seats for our children. So I believe the right to leisure, the right to play is being taken away from our children. So the day we did the advocacy at the Department of Happiness Affairs, which is supposed to be, like children felt like they were out of the box, playing around, they felt happy, they felt like children again.
I'm not sure the people that is working at the Department of Home Affairs, whether they have went through an education process around human rights, for instance, you know, because you're working with people. So there's a way how you need to work with people. Xenophobia, for instance, are they educated around that? Are they educated around gender-based violence? Because I think through education, a lot can be achieved that can change people's attitudes. Because at the end of the day, you want to change people's behaviors in terms of how they treat people or how they can better the services. And that can only be done through education and then getting involved and understanding what people are going through. Leaving your home country is not an easy decision, and going to somewhere else is an act of hope.
We need to live together, love each other, build our nations. We need to build a society where we embrace diversity, understand each other's culture, respect each other's culture, respect where each and everyone is coming from, and we live in peace as a nation, as a continent.